Yummy. I have a massively emo part going on right now. That's fitting. Hey guys, what's up? It's Royal Scales. Welcome back to my channel. It's been a minute, but that's because I've had to work. So, yeah, been working a lot and not been able to edit. Because of that, I just now sat down to edit, and I realized I did not have an intro for this video. This is another one of those side videos for my cosplays. This is how I made the bodysuit for my Among Us cosplay. This is like the second video of this cosplay that I'm editing, so I don't have it completely finished at the moment. But as soon as I do, you can check the description box and it will have the link for the main video, which is just a basic walkthrough of me telling you essentially how I made the entire costume. And then in that video will be the links. Oh, happiness. I love you. Whoa! Careful! Anyway, in that video's description will be the links that will take you to the more detailed videos of how I made all the pieces of the cosplay and where I got materials if I needed to link any of the materials. But yeah, so I hope you enjoy this video. And yeah.
I love you so much. Mommy's got to edit. Mommy needs that arm. Can I have that back? Can I have that?
Oh! So as you can probably tell from the intro, my voice is a little bit gone. Probably because of allergies and stuff, but you know, it happens to me a lot apparently. So yeah, basically what I'm doing to start out with, y'all know I don't really use patterns, which is something I should do. However, instead I just trace other pieces of clothing that I already own to get a similar shape. So that's what I'm doing here, is I'm just tracing one of my long sleeve bodysuits so that I can get an accurate, somewhat, pattern of how I want the bodysuit to look. One thing I should mention about PVC is that it does stick together a lot. So if you place the PVC against other PVC, it will stick. So whenever you go to trace and cut and everything, you do want to make sure that it is as straight as possible, because whenever you go to straighten it out later, it will have your cuts and markings off-centered, so it won't work out in your favor. As you can see here, I did pick up the bodysuit and replace it. Basically what I did that you can't see, because I'm really good at videography, is that whenever I picked it up, I flipped it the other way around. So the first time I traced it to where the back of it was facing outwards, and then the second time I placed it to where the front of it was facing outwards. Then I marked where the collar of the bodysuit starts, and then where the shoulder starts, and made all those markings. And that's kind of confusing to explain, but you can see it in the video, it's a little bit less confusing. You can kind of see here, I didn't use pins because the PVC sticks together so well. I didn't really feel a need to use pins, and if you know anything about me, I hate using pins, so that's a thing. Another thing that you can see that I feel like I forget to say in most of my cosplay videos that I feel like I go back and fix, but maybe I don't. I don't know, I don't really remember. Whenever you're cutting, do not cut on the lines that you have drawn, because that's going to be the lines that you sew on. And if you cut them, you will no longer have enough material to make the actual bodysuit. It'll fit too tightly, and I mean, if that's what you're going for, then I mean, that's one thing. But PVC does not stretch very well. So especially with this type of material, do not cut on the lines. Maybe even give yourself a little bit extra and cut. That's not what I meant to say. I meant to say leave a little bit extra so that you can sew it a little bit looser than you normally would with other materials. I didn't feel like this would be long enough to warrant a video of its own, so for the belt, I just took a yard of black ribbon with the reflective material on it that I found at Joann's, I believe. And when I measured it out, I liked that it hung really low, so I just went ahead and added a buckle to the entirety of the ribbon, and I really liked how that turned out, but you can definitely cut and measure it if you want to. Then came my least favorite part, which is adding the zipper. I don't know why, but I always struggle adding zippers to literally anything, and I think that part of that has to do with the fact that this particular sewing machine, oh my gosh, you can't switch out the presser feet, so I guess it's only one foot that you can't switch out, so yeah. As you saw just there, I did have to use pins for this because there was no way that the two materials were going to stick together, unfortunately. So I did have to use pins, but that's probably the least of my worries when it comes to adding zippers. And I don't really know how to tell you how to add a zipper unless you have a sewing machine that you have a specific zipper foot. You're going to have a bad time. So I know this is mid-costume, but my machine broke. But it's okay because my older sister already had this lovely birthday gift coming for me, and it is beautiful and fantastic. And I recorded a video on it. You should go check that out. Okay, back to the costume. So before I sewed the two pieces together, I had decided that I wanted a silver trim on the leg holes, the wrist hole things, the sleeves, that's what they're called, and the neck holes. I couldn't, however, find a silver bias tape, so I just used a gray one and painted it silver, which you will see later. To do this is pretty simple. You just follow the folds of the bias tape, and it pretty much gives you exactly where you have to sew it. I just pinned this to each of the areas that I wanted the trim to go and then sewed it on. The collar was probably the hardest part to apply the trim to just because there's such a deep curve to it, if that makes any sense, which kind of doesn't because you would think the leg holes also have a deep curve, but it honestly isn't that severe. However, the collar, it has to be lined up perfectly. So everything has to match up, all the measurements and everything, otherwise it will be very noticeable. In the video where I kind of unboxed and reviewed my sewing machine, again, go check that out, it's on my channel, it's pretty dope. I had mentioned that my older sister, who sent me the sewing machine, had requested that I do more sewing videos. One of those videos I've decided is going to be a little bit more in depth on how to use bias tape. So if you do need help with that, keep an eye out for it, and that should be coming pretty soon. Like I had said a second ago, I couldn't actually find a silver bias paint for some reason, so instead I just got a silver paint and painted on the bias tape. You have to be super careful about this though, because if you get it on the PVC and you don't notice it until later after it's already dry, it's very difficult to get it off. If you do get it on there and you notice it and you can wipe it off when it's wet, it should come completely off. However, still be very, very careful with this. Then it's time to sew the two pieces together to actually make the bodysuit. Remember what I said earlier about sewing a little bit outside of the white lines just to give yourself a little bit of room, because it's something that I wish I had done. While it does fit me, it does fit a little bit more snug than I would like for it to, so that's just something to keep in mind just in case. Something that I found that really helped me was to sew the top and the bottom together first, just so everything stays nicely aligned. So I started by sewing the crotch piece and then went and sewed the shoulders. Words are hard. I found that this made for a really good transition to sew the bottom part and then to sew the shoulder together, and then just continue that onto the top part of the sleeve, and then do the other side of the shoulder and the top part of the sleeve, and then finish by sewing the sides together. I later went back and added a zigzag stitch. This is usually going to give your stitches a little bit more stretch to them, so I would recommend using this on the white lines that you use to mark, or whatever color you use to mark. And then on the outside of that stitch, put a straight stitch so that it gives it a little bit more security. If you want to see what this looks like on, be sure to keep an eye out for the full walkthrough of how I did this costume, because that's going to contain every single one of the costume pieces and what they look like. So yeah, thanks for watching. I hope this was helpful and that you enjoyed, and we'll see you in the next one.